Hi, I'm Jonathan Weinberg, and this is Drawing with Fountain Pens. Today I'm going to do something different and go back, really sort of an update to a video I did 7 months ago about what's the best notebook to use with fountain pens if you're journaling. Um, we spend so much time, or fountain pen people spend so much time talking about the pens, but actually the paper is really important because if you use the wrong paper, um, the ink bleeds through, and that can be sort of a pain disaster. And it's tricky because different inks work differently and different pens interact differently with paper. I journal now every morning, and I have a kind of practice where I switch colors and pens every day. It's a way to get to use different fountain pens. So, a typical Waterman Serenity Blue usually doesn't bleed through, but a green ink might bleed through, particularly, or purples tend to bleed through. So I did a sort of video about which was the best notebook. I had been using for a long time Rhodia notebooks, and I tend to test the pens with Rhodia paper. I love the Rhodia notebooks, particularly I like the different colors that they come in. Here, this is a tan one, but they come in all kinds of different colors. I love the surface of it, and they worked fairly well, but there was some bleeding. And so I decided to try some other brands, and I came up with the Endless Pen people are particularly emphasize the fact that their notebooks um, are don't bleed through, that they don't bleed through. And I tried it out, and in fact, it seemed like their claim was true. But what's one of the problems with reviews is that you really have to use something for a while to really say if you like it. And it was okay, but I found, first of all, that the binding wasn't so great in certain places where the paper wouldn't fold open so well. And then there seemed to be an issue either with the coating or the glue. Sometimes it seemed there were places where the ink didn't actually adhere to the paper, and that could be that the paper wasn't coated evenly, or maybe there was a little excess glue coming from the binding process. So I wasn't so pleased with that. So then I discovered, after I did that review, the German company Leuchtturm, and I started using the Leuchtturm 1917 books. So here's a Leuchtturm 1917 book, right? And I found that the ink there was working really great. It wasn't bleeding through. The one difference with the Leuchtturm is that I use line paper when I'm journaling, and they have a narrower line width in their line journal, more like college style when you're writing in taking notes versus something that would be more for high school. I don't know. And at first I didn't like that, but actually I got used to it, and you get a lot more in a book when when the lines are more narrow. So it all actually worked out. I really liked it. They also come in a very similar format to the Rhodia. They have beautiful colors. It was all terrific until recently. I was using one of their journals from that line, and I noticed that some of the colors were bleeding through as if the paper had changed. So I wrote them the company actually a note saying, have you changed the paper or something different about what you're doing? And they responded, but they didn't really say anything about whether there were any changes, and they gave me advice that I should use different ink or different pen. And then I responded and I said, well, I'm really using very standard ink, Waterman. I usually tend to use Waterman ink, and that's about as standard as you can get. And then they didn't get annoyed, but they wrote me another note saying, well, what you really should be using is you should be using our special 120G, excuse me, journal, which has a thicker paper and which won't bleed through at all. And in fact, that is what I am doing now. There is a big difference here, which is that because the paper is thicker, you don't get as many pages. This has around 200 pages. The regular 1917 has around 250 pages. And the book is slightly thicker, right? And the paper has a kind of thickness to it, which is a little annoying. It's not quite, I don't know, somehow I find that a little less pleasant. However, it is absolutely true that the ink does not come through. And if that is something you care about, which I do care about, it really is a good solution. And their books are very beautifully bound. Everything else about them is terrific. You have to deal again with a more narrow line width. If you're using a line journal, that may be something that bothers you. They also come in really pretty colors, so all of that's good. It's a little more expensive. I'd say it's like about, at least on Amazon, maybe it's $3 or $4 more, but I think that's certainly worth it for journaling. So that's my answer right now, and I've been using the new journal now for several weeks, so I can definitely say that it works really, really well. Finally, let me say one thing about one last other thing. Now, these notebooks are made by Midori. I just don't like the binding. You can get like a kind of plastic cover for these guys. It's really good paper. It doesn't bleed through. It is thinner. So these really are terrific. I just don't like, for my journals, I want something more substantial. So I use this actually, this is sort of a messy, I use this to test out pens and to sort of keep like a pen diary. I still am very fond of the Rhodia journals. I really think they are terrific. I had some that I had bought already, and I keep actually a book of quotes, what's called a commonplace book. And I'm still doing that in a Rhodia journal. I think they're really good, and particularly if you like the thicker lining and you're just careful which inks you use. They don't really bleed through. They use the Clairefontaine paper. They're French, so they're really terrific. It's just that there are some pen inks that are going to come through with them, and it's not as I think if you're really obsessed with not getting that kind of bleed through, then you're good with the Leuchtturm journals. But you can't really go that wrong with the Rhodia. So that would be my runner up. So the Leuchtturm 120G. The 120 is the one with the thicker paper, the 1917 120G with the lined rule. That's what I've been using now, and I'm very pleased with this so far. I'll let you know if I begin to have a different kind of experience. As always, if this is useful to you, please subscribe and let me know, what you're using if you have a better solution. Thanks. Bye.